What's up, everybody? This is my top 10 horror movies of 2024 video. I'm doing this before I do my top 10 movies of 2024 outright. If you know me, you know I love horror movies. They're like one of, if not my favorite genre. And any chance I get to speak about horror, I will. Please like, share, and subscribe if you are new. If you like the content, if you want to see more like this, tell me if there's any horror movies I missed, something I should check out, something that you recommend, something that you thought I was totally off base on. I think my number three is probably the most controversial, depending on how you view Rotten Tomato scores. Again, like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoy. My number 10, for my number 10 spot for the top 10 horror movies of 2024 goes to Oddity, directed by Damian McCarthy and starring Caroline Bracken, Jonathan French. Every murder lives on. After the brutal murder of her twin sister, Darcy goes after those responsible by using haunted items as tools for her revenge. I saw this one mainly because it was on Rotten Tomatoes and had a really high Rotten Tomato score. And I had Shutter at the time where you can also go watch this as well. And thought, why not? Actually turned out to be really good. Like where you get your central scares from is actually from the protagonist, and she's a very vulnerable blonde woman. But there's something about her that lends itself to the scares, the believability of her being frightening. And it's a different approach. On the other hand, you have the husband who is portrayed as this sympathetic character with this girlfriend, and then this blind sister comes in who was the sister of your now deceased partner, or your now partner's deceased ex, and it's like a weird kind of three-pod relationship, but then the dynamics shift between him being the central protagonist to her being the central protagonist, and the blind sister being sort of the antagonist. And then that switches over to, like, I don't want to get into spoilers about who shifts into what, but I thought it was a nice play on, expectations. It looks amazing. The acting is superb, striking imagery, and like I said, the scares are effective, especially once another element is introduced towards the middle of the film. The Doctor Husband dude, he sucks, but he's great. He's great at sucking. The only thing that I would say that's negative about it, and that would probably put it a little bit below in my list, as you can see, number 10, there's a lot of great horror movies that came out this year. That's number one. Number two, it does feel a little stage play-y. Like, they do a lot with little, and I really admire horror movies that are like that. You'll see more examples of that throughout this list. But this one here, it felt a little empty. The set pieces felt a little empty. The location felt a little empty. There was a lot of space and a lot of the shots and the cinematography. Although I think some of that was intentional. But another part of me, it made it feel like, something that was filmed for streaming, and it looked like a one of those films that comes from Netflix, like the difference between Beverly Hills Cop 1 and a Beverly Hills Cop Axel F in terms of cinematography. It looks very empty. But it's a great film. It totally deserves the Rotten Tomato score it has. I'll probably have it here. Check it out. Really good one. Number 9 is The Substance, director Coralie Farga. Farga? I'm probably mispronouncing her name, female director from France. So the tagline for this film is, if you follow the instructions, what could go wrong? Here's a synopsis. A fading celebrity decides to use a black market drug, a cell replicating substance, roll credits, that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. At first, I thought it was pretty incredible that a female director directed this, with just how much focus there is on Margot Qualley's ass. She plays the better version of Demi Moore, our protagonist. But then you watch it a little bit more and you realize that the director has absolutely something to say, and that there is a theme for 2024 movies that kind of delve into the superstardom aspect of celebrity, the all of the negative effects of celebrity in each film that has tackled it this year comes at it from a different angle. This one attacks the like physicality, losing your beauty, like being in an industry that promotes beauty and then losing that beauty, and then what do you do after that? What would you be willing to risk to become a better you, a you that was like you back 10, 20 years ago? Given Demi Moore's actual age and the actual subject of the plot, there is like a vulnerability to her playing this character, serving as this protagonist. I love that the Cronenberg-ness of the physical horror, the body horror, extrapolates to like its furthest extent. Like, you're given this subset of rules to follow, and naturally, as we go on with the movie, you have to break those rules. And I love that we just fully go full throttle on breaking the rules, every rule in every which way. There's no room for wondering what would happen if they did this, and you eventually get to all that. But I love all of the messages is saying one of the most heartbreaking and like harrowing scenes in the film is watching Demi Moore's character get ready for a date and her constantly checking the mirror and finding insecurity about herself that keeps her from leaving to go on this date. There's some visual stuff going on, like there's a billboard outside of her better self, but inside of her house, beyond the glass from the billboard, is a portrait of herself when she was younger. It's like, this is who you are on the outside, but this is who you are on the inside. It's a lot of like amazing visual cues, visual messaging, great prosthetics, physical effects, visual effects. It's amazing. Great stuff. Like I said, this is one in many of the superstardom kind of films of this year to tackle the horrors of celebrity. And I think us as a society relates to this a bit more because, the influencer tagline is so much more easy to grasp, so coveted. And, a lot of people who aren't celebrities, who are just influencers under the gaze of the public eye, can relate to this more. So that's The Substance. You should check it out. It's like the popular movie. It was like Long Legs and The Substance this year of like internet word to mouth popularity. And this definitely earned it. I appreciated this movie a lot. All right, my number 8 is Smile 2. Okay, Smile 2, directed by Parker Finn. The tagline is "It's the last thing you'll see," and the synopsis is about to embark on a world tour. It's gonna ruin the tour. Global pop sensation Sky Riley begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. Overwhelmed by the escalating horrors and the pressure of fame, Sky is forced to face her dark past to regain control of her life before it spirals out of control. I went into this completely blank. I saw the original Smile, and I liked it, didn't love it, and then I saw this, not having too many expectations, and ended up enjoying it way more than the original. Although I did appreciate the tie-in, the introductory tie-in from the original leading into this sequel here, where you get Kyle Gallner showing up again, who was in the original one. I love the sound design. Any effective horror film uses sound to its benefit, and Smile 2 absolutely uses its sound to its benefit. I was watching it through a sound bar. Those big impact booms really resonated, really set the tone, really immersed me in the film. Although the Smile 2 has a lot of the same tropes that bothered me in the original Smile, which is like the running theme of not believing women. Not that I'm being like, super like male feminist about it. It just rubbed me the wrong way. It's one of the reasons why I don't like 2020's The Invisible Man. It also deals with like, workplace stress. But for this movie here, hooking all of that under the turmoils of fame and the pressures they're in, it really spoke to me way more than the original did. Even though they're the same themes, just the way they were portrayed, demonstrated, orchestrated, presented, really hit me way more than it did the original. And for that alone, I have to give it a big up. Like I said in my previous entry, For The Substance, Smile 2 also deals with the fame and celebrity pressures, but this one is more of like on the musical side, you know, the daunting tour life, the self-destructive lifestyle, the, you know, also the look aspects, don't get me wrong. But, you know, just a lot of the inner turmoils, the actual substance abuse, you know, there's substance abuse in the substance naturally, but she's dealing with this in an at like a much more real way. It's on the media, it's all publicized and stuff like that. So, you know, when she ends up where she ends up and she sees the curse, you know, she can't really explain it to anybody or else it'll ruin the world tour. Justin Timberlake is never like gonna live that down. But like I said, it's more effective, I feel like, and it resonates a lot more in 2024, and it's the perfect year to make this like a running theme in horror. Is because the influencer culture is just so tangible and so close to us that we can relate to it on some level. If we see a star suffering the perils of stardom, even though later on that day or night when we're on Twitter or Instagram, we're going to be saying hateful or mean things about stars, even though we just learned this lesson about how that affects stars. Right? There's a scene in the movie where there are these people chasing Naomi Scott Sky Riley throughout the apartment, like her apartment. And it was extremely effective. It was well choreographed. It was actually the choreographed scene that was chasing her, ironically enough. And it really reminded me of Roman Polanski's Repulsion. Repulsion is a really great movie, especially if you live by yourself. It's just like this woman who has this fear of men, um, having these thoughts when she's living by herself finally for the first time that all these men are coming into her home and stuff like that. And there's a scene where there's a bunch of people in the house and they're chasing after her and pulling at her clothes. It's really, like, really effective, scary stuff. And they kind of hint at that kind of fear-based stuff and even some of that same imagery in this movie. It's a really good movie. It's a very effective movie. And that ending, holy shit! I can't wait to see what they do with Smile 3 because there's gotta be a Smile 3 now, right? Right. Number 7 on my list of the top 10 of 2024 is Nosferatu. I just saw it last night. I saw it in theaters. I had a special screening and Robert Eggers showed up and spoke about it a little bit towards the end, for like 15 minutes. Really great movie. Like, you know, it's one of the most like high budget horror movies that come out this year. And you can really just see all the budget on the screen. It's a really gorgeous movie, straight out the gate. You can see the culmination of all of Eggers' previous work in the film. The opening sequence reminded me of The Witch, Do You Wish to Live Deliciously? One of my favorite horror movies of all time. I have the 4K here. It's one of the greatest 4Ks of all time. Is any chance I get to show it off, I'll show it. The time period and the costume design, alongside Willem Dafoe being in it, reminds me of Lighthouse, and the color grading and the cool shots, the dolly shots, they remind me a lot of The Northman. Making Lily Rose Depp here the central protagonist instead of Nicholas Holt's character was a super wise choice, and making her the central figure of the story really helps to reshape it. It really helps out because there was a review I watched. I think I watched for Nosferatu, which was Jeremy Johns. Is that there's no helping seeing the similarities of this film to Bram Stoker's Dracula, you know, because, you know, Nosferatu was a license free way to do Dracula. And he explains that in his video. Go check it out. And, you know, thank goodness they change up who the central protagonist is, because if not for that, you can see a lot of the core values from the Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula here, down to like visual effects, using prosthetic, using, you know, tilted shot work, using Olark, using, you know, camera movements and breaking the rule of film language to close the space and confuse audiences and where he's standing in a certain frame or something like that. It's just no help seeing the similarity. So that differentiation in central protagonist helps to differentiate it in a separate retelling of Nosferatu, and but it's also a very interesting way to go about the story from how we usually know it to be. Defoe is chewing the scenery in this movie the entire way through, and I love him for it. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. I think he's like becoming a muse for Eggers, which is amazing. I more Eggers and Defoe action. I'm here for it. There's a lot of intentional comedy, I feel like, in this, whereas, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, sorry to bring it up again, there's a lot of unintentional comedy.
Fucking playing with me, bitch.
In this is a lot of comedy. A large part of it comes from Willem Dafoe. I'm glad he's there. There's one shot of him with this extremely large pipe. He looks like the game hunter from Jumanji. Eggers came out, like I said, but he basically said sound design stuff, basically how there's, sound effects like the whistling of the wind or the sounds of the waves crashing that uses the sound from Olark and Lily Rose Depp. I should say Bill Skarsgård and Lily Rose Depp. It uses their vocals for the sound effects in some moments as they're intertwined together spiritually and stuff like that to hide Olark, his actual full look, who's played unrecognizably by Bill Skarsgård. I feel like I haven't mentioned him enough. He's unrecognizable. He really is like the king of horror. When you see him in it, you can see his face. In this, there's no way that you can tell that is that man. He just really goes deep in any role he plays. He is phenomenal. He's underlooked as like one of the best actors of our time. But yeah, he talks about wanting to hide Olark because he likes hiding monsters, and he had to reveal him towards the end of the film, a la Alien, breaking his own rule. Maybe I'll play some of it here, but maybe I won't because this is going on too long. But excellent film. I suggest you all see it. I've seen it twice already. Go watch it when it debuts, hits theaters, Christmas Day. Number 6 in my top 10 horror movies of 2024 is Exhuma, Korean film by director Jang Jae Hyun. The tagline, "The Vicious Emerges." The synopsis. After tracing the origin of a disturbed supernatural affliction to a wealthy family's ancestral gravesite, a team of paranormal experts relocates the remains and soon discovers what happens to those who dare to mess with the wrong. I knew nothing about this one. Yet again, it's available on Shudder. I saw it during Halloween time. I just jumped right into it. I wanted a good horror movie that I haven't seen before that came out this year just to prep for something like this. And it was really good. There was like 2 to 3 false endings. Once you think the movie is over, like it ends in one situation. It's like, the meme of like the brain expanding the more like deeper, the heavier or different ways you think about it. That's how this movie is. Like the core like reasoning for the plot to be going down is resolved, and you think it's the end. Then you look at the runtime and you realize, oh no, there's like an hour and some change left of the movie. It's not done yet. Could have, and then they could have just wrapped it when it got to the 90-minute mark as just like a really good like ghost story, right? Then it keeps going, and then the genre changes again to like something completely different. It still deals with paranormal, but like the horror subgenre suddenly shifts the further we get into these false endings. And that was very shocking to me. I did not see that coming. I thought it was very clever. You just keep going back to the site of the entire like focal point of the plot to like discover something new that you didn't see the first time when you were at this place, and then the plot keeps going. I also really fell in love with all of the characters in this movie. They're like a makeshift family. I like there's like a modern day lore to it. These are paranormal people that came together from different like corners of the supernatural world. So you have like a modern day shaman, her protege. You have like an older feng shui master and his goofy mortician partner, and it's like all walks of the spiritual life come together to like form a team to like dispatch of evil spirits and deal with like paranormal cases. And I thought that was super awesome. I love that world. I would love to see a sequel revisiting these characters, working another case. I would even love just to be in this world again with modern day shamans, and they're just like sitting around vaping and got all these tattoos, and they're like, it's super cool. Like, it sounds way more like a male power fantasy when I say all these tattoos, but watch it. It's not what you think. It's super cool. It's super modern day. I would love even a TV series with this. I would really enjoy it. I just want to be back in this world. Really great horror movie, very effective. You should definitely take the time to watch it. So my number 5, I spoke about in my top 10 movies of 2024 so far. Go check that out if you want in-depth details or how I was feeling about the film fresh out of the theaters when it came out in summer. Um, my number 5 is Longlegs. Now, if you watch that video, you'll see that I gave it a little bit of like heat. I said it was a dash overrated. And when you start tossing around claims of the scariest movie of all time, I automatically get upset. And maybe that's reflected a bit in that review. Because I watched it again with a buddy of mine during the Halloween month, and I had some newfound appreciation for it. I'll just repeat a few things that I said in that initial review here. Is good use of Nick Cage isms in the film. Has a great mood and atmosphere. Like the dread is palpable, and that's like the most effective thing about it. And the way it's shot, it's filmed like incredibly. Cinematography is delicious. Directed by Oz Perkins, Anthony Perkins' son, starring Mickey and Monroe, of course, Nicolas Cage, Blair Underwood in a surprising role. Alicia Witt, shout out to Alicia Witt, the little munchkin from the original Dune film. Yeah, so like I said, cinematography is great. The sound design is impeccable. Like I said previously in a video talking about horror films, I like where this movie goes in its third act, but it never reaches the heights of all of the scariest movies of all time. But it's effective in that it's you think it's one type of movie. It's been pitched as like the Silence of the Lamb type movie. Because your main character is in the FBI, and you know what? I realized I never did the tagline and the synopsis. Every year there's another. FBI agent Lee Harker is a gifted new recruit assigned to the unsolved case of an elusive serial killer. As the case takes complex turns, unearthing evidence of the occult, Harker discovers a personal connection to the merciless killer and must race against time to stop him before he claims another life of another innocent man. It sounds like some true crime suspense stuff, but then the devil gets involved, and then it becomes a subtrope of the devil genre, and then you get into the living doll aspect of it, and it just keeps morphing and morphing, and I really appreciate it. So yeah, Long Legs has been revived, seeing new life in my eyes on a second viewing. And for my number 4 spot, we have another movie I spoke about previously in my top 10 movies of 2024 so far. Late Night with the Devil from the Cairns brother, Cameron Cairns, Colin Cairns. Tagline: Do not adjust your set. Synopsis: a live broadcast of a late night talk show in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living room. My buddy, the same buddy I mentioned previously, told me that I need to watch this immediately. We were supposed to watch this together when it originally came out at the beginning of the year. We did not. He went back home, watched it, told me to watch it. I did so. Has been in my top 10 movies of all time of 2024 ever since, and it's definitely high on the top horror movies of 2024. And it has remained there ever since. It's a solid, solid effing movie. It's another Shudder original film. I don't know if it's original, but it's definitely available to watch on Shudder. That pretty much takes place in a single location, which is a stage set of a late night talk show, and it follows this guy who is looking to rekindle his talk show career using the paranormal and mediums to benefit his broadcast on Halloween. He suffered a loss. Soon find out that why that loss is so significant and why he shouldn't be messing around with the occult if he's done the things that he has done. It's a really good movie. It gets very trippy towards the end. Very effective. Please, if you have not watched that video, top 10 movies 2024 so far, please do. I speak about this a lot more at length. Please check it out. So, in the number 3 spot is Trap by my man M. Night Shyamalan. The tagline: 30,000 fans, 300 cops, one serial killer, no escape. The synopsis: a father and teen daughter attend a pop concert where they realize they're at the center of a dark and sinister event. The dad is a serial killer and the daughter doesn't know, and the dad has to find out a way to escape without being tipping off the FBI who are there because it's a sting operation and it's all in the trailer. I don't know why it's so mysterious in the synopsis. Anyway, it's starring Josh Hartnett, Ariel Douglas, Salika, which is M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, and it is a comedy. Trapped is a comedy. I was not expecting to laugh as much as I did watching this movie. I've been anticipating this for a while and thought it'd be some cat and mouse game with the FBI or something like that, like something like Death Note, like a battle of wits kind of thing with Josh Hartnett's character and the detective's character, who is played by Haley Mills. Dr. Josephine Grant is the character's name. But no, it just showcases Cooper, who is Josh Hartnett's character, getting away with like various things through just like charisma and cunning alone, right? My only two gripes with the movie is that the pop star just is a little bit too Mother Teresa for me. She just like cares a little bit too much about doing the right thing. Like you know, this perception that stars are all selfish, but I guess she's not. And maybe it should have ended about 15-20 minutes earlier, but the latter is just a personal thing that may change upon me, like, you know, growing into the movie. There was a certain scene that like went viral online of him escaping and like doing more threatening shit, and I wish that was in the film, but then again, I can understand why they took it out. But in lieu of like the extra 15-20 minutes, I thought it would have made for like a more like, you know, suspenseful lead into the more subdued ending we do get. It was worth watching, especially in theaters. Like the crowd reaction, the laughing with Kid Cudi looking like a Targaryen, outrageously funny. I really enjoyed it. You know, M. Night Shyamalan, he's one of the hit and miss guys, but he's been a little bit more a hit than miss these days, except for like Glass. You know, Glass was a huge disappointment for me. But I really enjoyed this. This, you know, was very clever. This falls into the sort of, you know, theme that I was talking about. Maxine is another one of those films, even though that film really didn't live up to expectations, where like you're showcasing like the woes of superstardom and, you know, possibly getting hijacked into a situation, having to use your fans to get out of jams and figure out, you know, crimes, and you know, using your online audience for that. You know, that's a thing we've seen since the Boston bombing thing. Very interesting stuff. Yeah, go M Night. My number two for the top 10 horror movies of 2024. If you've or if you're familiar with the page, if you've seen the top 10 movies of 2024 so far video that I've referenced throughout this video, maybe you already know. It's The First Omen, directed by Arkasha Stevenson, another female director. The tagline is "Create something to fear," and the synopsis is: when a young American woman is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church, she encounters a darkness that causes her to question her own faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate. Um, I've said a bunch of things, and again, if there's any entry that you should really look back on for that, or like my full thoughts on and look back on that 2024 video I keep harping about, it's this entry. But I have seen it a few more times since then and have, you know, logged in a few more thoughts about the film. You know, it's the perfect prequel to the original series that I include in my rewatch, letting it serve as the first part of a trilogy that ends with the second film, because The Exorcist 3 sucks. So basically, I watched the first Omen, and then that leads into the original Omen, and then the Omen Part 2, Damien, blah blah blah, right? So I watched this again after Alien Romulus came out, and this and Alien Romulus have a lot in common in that they're both like They come from a legacy franchise, and they're both, 2024 sort of like reboot prequel kind of things, even though, I think this one takes place a little bit after Alien or Aliens or one of the two. Anyway, in a world where Alien Romulus starts off with its own identity before being seemingly forced to connect back to previous films in the franchise after like 30 minutes, you really come to appreciate the approach of the first Omen because it earns its final 10 minutes as it connects back to the original Omen and even showcases a double of Gregory freaking Peck. It really earns it as opposed to so many other like, films of this same ilk that are like a part of a legacy and part of a franchise, and is like a studio mandate almost that you got to connect it back, almost like the MCU. But they just let it cook for a predominant amount of time of the runtime, and even where there were moments where you had to connect back some of the kills to the original, they did it in such a way where it's like, they added a little bit extra, and those were the only moments that clued me in that this was a prequel. Because otherwise, I didn't know. They don't market it as a prequel, and I thought that was really clever as well. The other thing, I saw this movie Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, which is basically, I think that's how her name is pronounced. You know which girl I'm talking about, Bazungas, and it's pretty much like similar themes. There's a church, there's a woman, there's a baby, but watching that made me appreciate the first Omen a bit more again, because in that it tackles very much the same topics as Immaculate. This has a bit more social commentary on women. There's a lot more to say about women than in Immaculate, even though they cover similar topics. And the way that this film connects back to Rome's protest as like a similar like showcase of where society is at and why religion is under fire and why these religious people are doing the things that they're doing, and kind of just the mental state of society and how it reflects our character and how they're feeling internally. Really great stuff, really artful stuff. There's a lot packed into this. Like I said, what should be studio slop, but they just really let the director cook. They let the writer cook, the screenwriter cook, and I appreciate this film. It's the second best horror movie of this year. Now here's number one. So for my number one spot, the number one best horror movie of 2024 is Strange Darling by JT Molnar, directed by JT Molnar. Love Hurts is the tagline, and this is the synopsis. Nothing is what it seems when a twisted one night stand spirals into a serial killer's vicious murder spree. I'm not going to give you spoilers. I want you to go into this as fresh as I did. It's not going to be as fresh because I'm going to talk about it just a bit more with a bit more reference and things to say than what I went into it with. I saw a buddy of mine chatting about this with somebody else I follow on Twitter, and I immediately went to go watch it pretty cold, and I was amazed. This is one of these horror movies that is just elevated to art. It's truly like a work of art in terms of direction, score, premise, structure. It's a non-linear structure a la Tarantino. Cinematography, costume design, usage of color, everything presentation wise is on point and meaningful towards the plot. The score by Z Berg is immaculate. I know a movie has changed my life or touched me in a magnificent way when I am enraptured by the soundtrack and I'm listening to it on Spotify. The score by Z Berg is immaculate. It reminds me of this band that I listen to called Men I Trust. It's like folksy, kind of like whistling in the wind and the meadows type music, but there's like an undertone of like sinister to it, angelic sinisterness to it. And the music elevates this film to such a level, to like heights of Darren Aronofsky and the Black Swan type levels. It's such artistic usage. The places the soundtrack kicks in, the way some songs are used to elevate scenes to showcase what our characters are thinking is just terrific sound wise. The acting is incredible by both leads who are now on my radar. Shout out to Kyle Gardner once again, and Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gardner. I like to call them the chick. I like to call them Gone Girl and Andrew Schultz because she looks like the girl from Gone Girl and he looks like Andrew Schultz with that mustache he got. But like they really play on like the dynamics of audience expectation, of just such societal expectations. The director and writer is so smart, and what they're doing is executed so well in the film. Please check this out. I cannot wait until this comes to 4K stateside. I know that there's one available in the UK, and I think the way that I would be able to get it here in America is sold out right now. So I'm on the lookout for the 4K. If you guys are in the 4Ks and you hear anything about Strange Darling, please let me know. If there's like a steel book, even if it's just the regular standard 4K, holla at your boy. I need this. I need to support this. I hate that I didn't see it in theaters. I had to rent this on Voodoo Fandango at home. I wish that I got a chance to see this in theaters. I had no clue it was even out. I didn't see any marketing. I see there's like some big lawsuit going on right now. I saw it on THR about how they're suing the distributor or the production company over how bad the movie flopped, and it makes me so sad because this movie is terrific, excellent, 10 out of 10. I showed it to my buddy. I showed it to my partner. He says it was a 10 out of 10 movie. It was better than my number one movie of the year. I'll get into that at another time. My lady, who is not into horror movies, even though this is a bit more thriller than horror, but it's still definitely horror slasher vibes. She liked it. Yeah, this altered my brain chemistry. There's not enough good things I can say about this movie, and I don't want to say too much. Please go watch this movie.